So sometimes I'm a horrible person. And sometimes I find a video and I'm like, well, you know what? This is very, very, very interesting to me. I want to hear someone else's perspective as they got started with things. And sometimes I hear the long explanation through the video. So PAV is like, or PAV, I don't know how he says it, but exactly talking about switching to Linux and like the journey that is and like settling in on Arch and things like that. I've kind of been through this journey myself. I had a what? Actually, probably it's pretty close. I was on Ubuntu and other Ubuntu based distros for a few years longer than he was, but still I eventually moved to Arch. Then I took a 2 yearish break from most of that and then came back to it. Kind of jumped into Mint and then went back to an Arch-based distro very quickly after that. But I am pretty horrible because he made the comment that for many veteran Linux users, it is very hard, sometimes hard for them to be charitable to other people. And I make horrible comments like this sometimes because the snark really, really shows. And, this is a long roundabout way of saying it's harder for veteran Linux users to get women. And, I mean, you're talking like almost 40 minutes of saying that veteran Linux users can both be the nicest people and also the hardest people to get along with because they want you to read the documentation. And part of that may be due to the fact that teaching you to read the documentation does give you the skills in order to do things on your own, which is a really important skill in this aspect. There are way more videos out there that teach you how to get into Linux now than there were 15 years ago. By, like, miles. I mean, I've made some of them myself. But the cool thing is that he did respond to me. I got noticed by Senpai. He's at 8.26 thousand subs. So, I'm just a little bit behind. Based on your profile pic, methinks thou doth project a bit. And, of course, I was projecting, but somebody's got to play the dating game on Dark Souls difficulty. So this comes kind of mostly from the idea that, it can be kind of hard when you are the type of person that is willing to torture yourself with getting into Linux. You typically fall lower on the social skills category of things. And that can be hard sometimes because you've got this shell that you've got to crack open. And so it's a lot easier to deal with computers and fight with a computer and torture yourself with that because the computer will actually listen somewhat better than people will. And understanding people can be somewhat harder because it's not just type on keyboard and thing happen. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of similar. People react in a certain way with certain input and stimuli. And then that results in either something good or bad happening, much like a computer. That keyboard is your stimuli to create an interaction. And depending on the operating environment you're working with, it can have different reactions. So, like, if I go in and I can type CD here or CD documents, and it's going to react in a similar way as Windows will. But if I go like dir, okay, that shortcut works, but like it may be slightly different. I may not always have the ls or exa on my system on a Windows system. So that shortcut may not work necessarily. But obviously dir seems to work quite well on Linux, even though that's the standard one on Windows. People, and especially women, are a lot the same way. Each one is going to be different, which is hard to wrap your head around sometimes. And putting yourself in those situations where you're going to be able to play that dating game can be really, really difficult. I alluded to kind of this idea in a soldering video. And it's more along the lines of, as over the last month as of recording this, I've kind of like had this new like journey start up where it's like, okay, it is possible for Linux, like daily driving Linux users to get women. Yes, it's kind of a meme, but it's possible. You've just got to put yourself in the right situations. And it can feel like you're playing Dark Souls because you've got to dodge around and do different things to avoid like scaring all of them off. But they are out there. Trust me, I know. I've been there once or twice and am there now, I guess you could say. But the key things that when it comes to being a veteran Linux user and trying to get women, or being in any social environment and learning to actually get along socially with people, is to actually put yourself in those situations. Whether it be, well, you know what? We're going to pick on NeoVim today. Whether it be like just going outside. See, the wallpaper's appropriate. You've got to go outside. You've got to do things. You've just got to put yourself out there, whether it be in like churches or even clubs or even D&D, because there are women there. You can find attractive women at D&D, okay? I swear to it on my life. They are out there. Sometimes it feels like they're far and few between, but they're there. And Saint Con Talk hasn't been posted yet, but it kind of like goes along with it. You've got to be able to break out of that shell. And that includes like overcoming your fears. Just do it. The old saying goes like, the worst you can do is say no. Of course, there are worse things that can happen. She could string you along and then like drop you down the road later on, like a month or two later. But it's kind of like, it's gonna hurt, and that means sometimes you're gonna like turn back, lick your wounds, and then have to like pick yourself back up and try again. Sometimes that means surrounding yourself with people that are willing to do that as well. One thing that I've found is sometimes we surround ourselves perpetually with certain kinds of people, whether that be like single people or what have you, or there are different situations that we put ourselves in life where we avoid all these things. And that's where it becomes an issue, because we're in our basement perpetually, and that lends itself to not meeting women. And it leads to other things like gooning in your basement and just constantly not doing anything to kind of like try and fill that hole that we're missing with that relationship, that ends up not really filling it, but leads us down further and further down that hole, rather than doing something that will actually build up our lives, improve it, and get out there and do things. So in the end, is it possible for you to do that as a veteran Linux user? Yes, you can still continue to be like, wear your tinfoil hat, use Linux, and do those kinds of things. But you've got to put yourself out there, which can be hard. And that means whether you are religious or not religious, there are multiple ways of doing this. There are all kinds of clubs and things that you can participate in and things like that. So, and even finding the clubs takes a little bit of internet savvy, so you should be well equipped for that. If you're like constantly gooning, you've already got the tools to find the things that you want. You just have to redirect what you're looking for and change your goals. It's going to be tough to get the first steps, but you can do it. I believe in you. If you liked the content, if you enjoyed it, if you think I deserve it, like, comment, subscribe, leave any criticisms you have or what have you. I appreciate it. Feed that algorithm, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next one.